everyone. Nice to see you all. Please let me know if the sound is okay. Tonight, we will continue our study of Bhagavad Gita as it is by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. And tonight we will continue from chapter 5, verse 27 through to chapter 6. So if you have any questions or comments as we go, then please ask. Text number 27 and 28. Shutting out all external sense objects, keeping the eyes and vision concentrated between the two eyebrows, suspending the inward and outward breaths within the nostrils, and thus controlling the mind, senses, and intelligence, the transcendentalist aiming at liberation becomes free from desire, fear, and anger. One who is always in this state is certainly liberated. So in the purport, Srila Prabhupada says, a Krishna conscious person, being always engaged in devotional service, does not risk losing his senses to some other engagement. This is a better way of controlling the senses than by Ashtanga Yoga. Being engaged in Krishna consciousness, one can immediately understand one's spiritual identity and then understand Krishna by means of devotional service. So this is the reoccurring theme of the Bhagavad Gita, that we are meant to engage our senses in the service of the master of the senses. Rishikena Rishikesha Sevanam Bhakti Uchate. So our senses are meant to be used in Krishna's service. If we don't use the senses in Krishna's service, they will bring us down. They will lead us away from devotional service, from our spiritual life, and make us focus on the material energy. So that is the situation with the material senses. They are very powerful, very hard to control, as Krishna mentions in the Bhagavad Gita. Right? It's very hard to control the senses. But if one uses the senses in the service of Krishna, one overcomes their effect, and one can then begin to transcend the material energy. So this is something that Prabhupada mentions and Krishna mentions again and again. If we don't engage our senses in Krishna's service, they will make us fall down, because the senses are very powerful. If we try to not use the senses, if we just engage in meditation or study or some sort of yogic process and not engage the senses, we will struggle. So that is the system that Krishna gives us. Right? It's an ancient system, and we need to follow that system if we're going to transcend this material energy. Prabhupada then says in the purport, by practice of bhakti yoga, one is able to gain control over the senses, refrain from outward sense objects, and thus prepare oneself for liberation in the Supreme. When one is well situated in devotional service, one comes to the transcendental position, qualified to feel the presence of the Lord in the sphere of one's activity. This particular position is called liberation in the Supreme. Bhakti Yoga helps one become free from all kinds of fear and anger. So we overcome attachment, we become self-realized by engaging in Bhakti Yoga in devotional service. If we don't engage in devotional service, the material energy will consume us. So therefore, we have to engage in devotional service on the deepest level. If we can manage to do that, we can transcend the material energy once and for all. So text number 29. Now, the next text, Prabhupada termed this verse, which is a famous verse in the Bhagavad Gita, he called it the peace formula. It is how we attain peace in Krishna consciousness. Right? It is the peace formula for the whole world. Bhaktaram Jagatapasam, Savaloka Maheshwaram, Suridam Savabhutanam, Gatwa Shantim Richati. The English says, a person in full consciousness of me, knowing me to be the ultimate beneficiary of all sacrifices and austerities, the supreme lord of all planets and demigods, and the benefactor and well-wisher of all living entities, attains peace from the pangs of material miseries. So there are three elements to attaining perfect peace in Krishna consciousness. The first is Bhaktaram Jagatapasam. Bhaktaram Jagatapasam. Bhakta means the person who enjoys. Who enjoys the connection to, or who enjoys the offerings of the sacrifices, Jagya, Tapasam, and our austerities that we perform. Who enjoys those things? It is Krishna. Right? Krishna is the enjoyer of everything in this material world. Right? Everything in the creation is meant to be offered to Krishna for his pleasure. Now, so often, people, the disease in the material world is everyone thinks everything in this material world is for their enjoyment. Right? We are meant to enjoy. Bhaktaram, Jagya Tapasam. We are meant to enjoy. It's all for us. Right? We're the enjoyer. This is the material disease. So you'll never be peaceful in this world as long as you're trying to enjoy everything for yourself, your selfish pleasure. Therefore, we have to offer everything to Krishna. Bhaktaram, Jagya, Tapasa. When we understand everything in this world is meant for Krishna's pleasure, we become peaceful. As long as we try to enjoy this material energy for ourselves, we will never be peaceful. So Bhaktaram Jagatapasam, Savaloka Maheshwaram. Savaloka Maheshwaram. Maheshwara, the supreme magician, or the supreme lord of all planets and demigods, Savaloka. If you understand everything belongs to Krishna, he is the lord of everything, you'll become peaceful in this material world. Right? But if you don't understand that everything belongs to Krishna, you'll never find peace in this world. So Savaloka Maheshwaram. Then Suridam Savabhutanam. Who is the Suhrit? Suridam Savabhuta of all living entities means, Suhrit means the best friend. The person who is closest to your heart. Right? That is Krishna. There isn't anyone else. Suridam Savabhutanam. Right? It is only Krishna who can give us complete satisfaction and bliss. So when you understand that, When you understand that, you become perfectly peaceful, right? You become completely satisfied in this world. When you don't understand that, you'll never be satisfied in this world. So that is the final verse for chapter 5. Now, chapter 6. Chapter 6 is entitled Jnana Yoga, the yoga of meditation. In other words, the goal of the yoga process is to control the mind, to focus the mind. So jnana yoga means to focus the mind. That is jnana yoga, meditation. So now Krishna is about to explain this principle. Gurujan Prabhu says in the introduction for this chapter, in Surrender Unto Me, he says, in chapter 5, Krishna explained how to achieve liberation through Nishkam Karma Yoga. And at the end of the chapter, he explained how to achieve the same liberation through Ashtanga Yoga. Now in chapter 6, Krishna will describe the process of Ashtanga Yoga in greater detail. So, the first verse of chapter 6 reads, the Supreme Personality of Godhead said, one who is unattached to the fruits of his work and who works as is obligated is in the renounced order of life and is the true mystic, not he who lights no fire and performs no duty. So Prabhupada explains in the purport, the criterion of perfection is the living entity who acts for the satisfaction of Krishna and not for personal satisfaction. He is the perfect sannyasi, the perfect yogi. So the perfect sannyasi, the perfect yogi. This is the criteria of the living entity who is unattached to the fruits of his work. So what Krishna is speaking about here, he's talking about the platform of renunciation, the platform of being completely detached from this world. Prabhupada says that a perfect sannyasi is one who gives up the desire for sense gratification. It's not that he stops working in this world. So we're meant to continue working in this world, right? As a sannyasi, even if you're renounced from this world, you're meant to act within this world for the benefit of others, right? That is the criteria of perfection. That is perfect yoga. When one connects everything one does for the pleasure of Krishna. Prabhupada further says in the purport, in this chapter, the Lord explains that the process of the Eightfold Yoga system is a means to control the mind and senses. However, this is very difficult for people in general to perform, especially in the age of Kali. Although the Eightfold Yoga system is recommended in this chapter, the Lord emphasizes that the process of Karma Yoga or acting in Krishna consciousness is better. So this chapter is speaking about how in this material world, one may see everything as false. And when we see everything is false in this world, we may want to detach ourselves from this world. But better than detaching yourself from this world is engaging your senses in the service of Krishna, engaging everything in this world in the service of Krishna. That is a much higher level of consciousness. So this is what Krishna is speaking of here in the Bhagavad Gita. Prabhupada says the sannyasis and yogis sometimes artificially think that they have become liberated from all material duties, but they are self-interested because their goal is to become one with Brahman. Lord Chaitanya, the highest perfectional symbol of renunciation, prays, O Almighty Lord, I have no desire to accumulate wealth, nor to enjoy beautiful women, nor do I want any number of followers. What I want only is the causeless mercy of your devotional service in my life, birth after birth. So Lord Chaitanya is teaching us the perfect consciousness, how all of us should give up our attachments to this world and simply engage in service to Krishna. Text number 2. What is called renunciation, you should know to be the same as yoga, or linking oneself with the Supreme. O son of Pandu, for one can never become a yogi unless he renounces the desire for sense gratification. Prabhupada says in the purport, real sannyas, yoga or bhakti, means a living entity gives up all selfish satisfaction and be prepared to satisfy Krishna. All purposes are perfectly served by the practice of Krishna consciousness, jnana and vairagya. So if you practice devotional service, you will become learned, you will become knowledgeable, and you will become detached. These are the natural byproducts. Ahoituki, janayat yashu, vairagyam, jnanam chayat ahoitukam, Bhagavatam says. Ahoituki means one automatically, right, becomes detached from this material energy when you engage in devotional service. And Prabhupada then says, one who has no information of the Supreme must therefore be engaged in self-satisfaction, because no one can stand on the platform of inactivity. Gurujan Prabhu says in the purport, in his commentary, restraining the senses is not the only constituent in true renunciation of sense gratification. Even the desire for sense gratification must be renounced. So we have to give up the desire for sense gratification. This is born from avidya. Avidya means ignorance, right? When we are ignorant of our true identity, we harbor all of these material desires. And as long as we have these material desires, we will act upon them, right? And we will engage in sense gratification in this world. That's why we need to renounce these desires and become fully absorbed in the service of Krishna. Text number 3. For one who is a neophyte in the eightfold yoga system, work is said to be the means. And for one who is already elevated in yoga, cessation of all material activities is said to be the means. Prabhupada says in the purport that a Krishna conscious person is situated from the very beginning on the platform of meditation because he always thinks of Krishna. And being constantly engaged in the service of Krishna, he is considered to have ceased all material activities. So, better than just meditating all day, which most of us can't do anyway, is to engage in the service of Krishna. Prabhupada then says, the process of linking oneself with the Supreme is called yoga. It may be compared to a ladder for attaining the topmost spiritual realization. This ladder begins from the lowest material condition and rises up to perfect self-realization in pure spiritual life. It may be divided into 3 parts, namely Jnana Yoga, Jnana Yoga, and Bhakti Yoga. The beginning is called Yoga Rurukshu, and the highest rung is called Yoga Rudha. So, in the beginning of spiritual life, we have to get rid of our passion and ignorance. All right? Prabhupada explains that all of us are bound by passion and ignorance in this world. So we have to overcome that passion and that ignorance. How do we do that? By engaging, working hard and engaging ourselves in the service of Krishna actively. In due course of time, when the passion and ignorance dissipates, we'll come more into the mode of goodness, and then we'll be able to meditate or focus on Krishna in an inactive way. So this is something we need to focus on as devotees. This is our system. Right? The system is that we focus on engaging our senses and burning up the passion and ignorance, so that at the end of our lives we'll be peaceful, we'll be in the mode of goodness, and then we can meditate on Krishna. We can chant many rounds and we can do japa and we can focus like that more of our time. But in the beginning, that may not be practical for everyone. Text number 4. A person is said to be elevated in yoga when, having renounced all material desires, he neither acts for sense gratification nor engages in fruitive activities. So Prabhupada says, when a person is fully engaged in the transcendental loving service of Krishna, he is pleased in himself, and thus he is no longer engaged in sense gratification or in fruitive activities. Right? So that is the key. Right? The key is to purify the senses. As the senses become purified, the mind becomes purified. As the mind becomes purified and we engage in devotional service, then we automatically have no room or no desire for sense gratification. So that is something we have to focus on in our devotional service. Prabhupada then says, one who has no such realization must mechanically try to escape material desires before being elevated to the top rung of the yoga ladder. So in the beginning, we mechanically give up sense gratification. Like we'll practice brahmacharya. It's not that we don't have sex desire in the beginning. Sex desire is there, but we mechanically or we make a conscientious effort to not engage in sex life unnecessarily. Right? And we become detached. But it's mechanical. It's not that we're just fully above the desire for sex, as an example, but rather we understand that we have to give it up. So understanding we have to give it up, we give it up gradually by engaging ourselves in Krishna's service. And then the desire gradually dissipates, right? And then it's not a mechanical thing, but param drishtva nivartate. We have a higher pleasure a higher taste in Krishna consciousness, and then we just automatically renounce it. Text number 5. One must deliver himself with the help of his mind and not degrade himself. The mind is the friend of the conditioned soul and his enemy as well. So now we're about to hear about how the mind needs to be purified and controlled. These are famous verses from the Bhagavad Gita, directly dealing with the mind, because the mind is the center of our existence. We enjoy everything through our mind. If we taste something nice, it's in the mind that we're enjoying these things. So the mind is the center of our existence. When we do devotional service, we enjoy serving Krishna in our mind. So the mind is the center of the yogic practice to learn to control the mind. So now Krishna is going to speak about controlling the mind so that we can engage in his service. Prabhupada says in the purport, for man, mind is the cause of bondage and mind is the cause of liberation. Mind absorbed in sense objects is the cause of bondage, and mind detached from the senses, from sense objects, is the cause of liberation. Therefore, the mind, which is always engaged in Krishna consciousness, is the cause of supreme liberation. So, as Krishna says here in this verse, the mind is either the best friend or the worst enemy. And we all have that experience, right? The mind can help us focus on Krishna and help us to attain Krishna. But the mind can also pull us down and take us away from Krishna. So it's a matter of controlling the mind. It's a matter of developing a taste for bhakti, for devotional activities, so that the mind will gradually overcome its material attachments, so that then we can focus on Krishna properly. Prabhupada then says in the purport, the mind should be trained so that it will not be attracted by the glitter of material nature. And in this way, the conditioned soul may be saved. One should not degrade oneself by attraction to sense objects. The more one is attracted by sense objects, the more one becomes entangled in material existence. So that is our goal. Our goal is to give up our attachments, to enjoy separately from Krishna. So one has to learn to control the mind. In the beginning, control it, even if it feels artificial. But we have to detach ourselves from sense gratification and focus the mind on positive spiritual activities, which will help to liberate us and lift us out of our attachments in this material world. Text number 6. For him who has conquered the mind is the best of friends, but for one who has failed to do so, the mind will remain the greatest enemy. Prabhupada says the constitutional position of the jiva is to carry out the order of the superior. As long as one's mind remains an unconquered enemy, one has to serve the dictations of lust, anger, greed, illusion, etc. But when the mind is conquered, one voluntarily agrees to abide by the dictation of Krishna, who is Paramatma. For one who takes to Krishna consciousness directly, perfect surrender to the dictation of Krishna follows automatically. So, this is the focus, right, that the devotee needs to cultivate. if one doesn't learn to control the mind, right, one will become overwhelmed by the dictations of the mind. And how does the mind dictate to us? Right? The mind is, when it's polluted, it becomes corrupted by lust, by anger, by greed, by envy, by pride, illusion. All these qualities come into the mind. So the process of Krishna consciousness is to purify the mind so that we don't have attachment in this way. We can rise above and we become above the platform, right, of being dictated to by the mind or controlled by the mind. Yeah, we have to make the mind the friend. We have to control the mind with the buddhi or the intelligence. Not that that's what Krishna spoke about in chapter 3. Rather than the mind controlling us and overwhelming us. Text number 7. The one who has conquered the mind, the supersoul is already reached, for he has attained tranquility. To such a man, happiness and distress, heat and cold, honor and dishonor are all the same. Prabhupada says in the purport, every jiva is intended to abide by the dictation of Krishna, who is Paramatma. When the mind is misled by the external illusory energy, one becomes entangled in material activities. Therefore, as soon as one's mind is controlled through one of the yoga systems, one should be considered to have already reached the destination. So, for one who has conquered the mind, we've practically reached the destination. Because once we can fix the mind on Krishna, we don't have any more, we don't feel any more distraction by the material energy. So it is imperative that devotees conquer the mind, learn to control the mind, learn to engage the mind in the service of Krishna. Right? Do so much service that you have no opportunity to think of sense gratification. Prabhupada then says, because this transcendental position is at once achieved by one who is in Krishna consciousness, the devotee is unaffected by dualities. This state is practical samadhi, or absorption in the Supreme. So we need to focus our mind on serving Krishna, which is the definition of samadhi, or complete focus. Otherwise, we will suffer in this material world. Text number 8. A person is said to be established in self-realization and is called a yogi or mystic when he is fully satisfied by virtue of acquired knowledge and realization. Such a person is situated in transcendence and is self-controlled. He sees everything, whether it be pebbles, stones, or gold, as the same. So Prabhupada says, no one can become Krishna conscious simply by mundane scholarship. One must be fortunate enough to associate with a person who is in pure consciousness. A Krishna conscious person has realized knowledge by the grace of Krishna because he is satisfied with pure devotional service. By realized knowledge, one becomes perfect. So Krishna mentions this in the Bhagavad Gita, and it's elaborated on in the Bhagavatam, that we need to find devotees who are fully absorbed in Krishna's service and associate with them. Because by associating with those who are fully absorbed in their consciousness in Krishna's service, we will also become absorbed in that way. Right? So we need to find the association which will elevate us in our consciousness, right? And this way we can overcome the dictates of the mind and the material energy, and we can focus fully on Krishna. Text number 9. A person is considered still further advanced when he regards honest well-wishers, affectionate benefactors, the neutral, mediators, the envious, friends and enemies, the pious and the sinners, all with an equal mind. So this is advancement in Krishna consciousness, when our mind becomes equal. We become equal in our mind. Right? We can equally see others. We don't see differences, and we don't see differences, and therefore we don't act on the bodily concept of life. But we stay transcendental. We stay elevated in our consciousness. So Prabhupada says, mind absorbed in sense objects is the cause of bondage, and mind detached from sense objects is the cause of liberation. Therefore, the mind, which is always engaged in Krishna consciousness, is the cause of supreme liberation. We know we're advancing Krishna consciousness when we see things equally. You know, when we're always seeing things in terms of duality, male, female, different nationalities, and we respect one creature but we don't respect another creature. That's the duality. That means we're not advanced in Krishna consciousness. One who's advanced in Krishna consciousness sees things in an equal way. Pandit Samadarshana, as Krishna mentioned in the previous chapter. So verse 10, which is the final verse in this section for tonight. A transcendentalist should always engage his body, mind, and self in relationship with the Supreme. He should live alone in a secluded place and should always carefully control his mind. He should be free from the desires and feelings of possessiveness. Prabhupada says, Krishna consciousness means concisely to be always engaged in the transcendental loving service of the Lord. A directly Krishna conscious person is the topmost transcendentalist because such a devotee knows what is meant by Brahman and Param Atma. So a devotee, he sees beyond this material world. A devotee has transcendental consciousness, transcendental vision. And he's engaged in the transcendental loving service of the Lord. And therefore he rises above the attachments of the mind to the material energy. Krishna says we should live alone in a secluded place. So it means if you can't live alone in a secluded place, because for many of us that would be difficult to not have association, because we couldn't just fully absorb ourselves in Krishna consciousness, then, if we can't live like that, then we should always stay with the devotees. Because when you're with the devotees, you are protected and you are purified so that you lose your taste for the material energy. So if we don't do this, if we don't associate with devotees, we won't rise above the attachments we have to this material world. So this is pure Krishna consciousness. This is how to develop pure Krishna consciousness. Right? We have to cultivate that kind of mentality. So gradually, over time, we cultivate the mentality, we give up our attachment to this material world, right? And we focus on Krishna. So Krishna here is teaching how to control the mind. Dhyana means meditation. If you can't control your mind, then you can't meditate on Krishna. So the best way to learn to control the mind and to meditate on Krishna is by engaging the senses in the service of Krishna. Then gradually the mind will become purified and will begin to focus. So I'll stop here. Does anyone have any questions or comments on what we discussed? Okay. Thank you all for coming. We'll see you next week. Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Thank you for coming.
Thank you, Prabhu.
See you soon.
See you soon. Hare Bol.